everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanna, and I'm going to apologize in advance if my glasses are reflecting my light. These ones do not have the anti-reflection coating on them, unlike my previous glasses, so there's not much I can do other than keep the light fairly low, and again, I apologize. Today I wanted to talk about social constructs, specifically the social construction of race and gender. So maybe you've heard somebody in passing, maybe even on my channel, say that race and gender are social constructs, but then not go into a whole lot of detail about it, which isn't very helpful because unless you do that sort of research yourself, then you probably don't know what that means. So I would like to go through that with you today and let you know what that means. To put it bluntly, both race and gender had to be invented in order to introduce and reinforce social hierarchies and social norms. These are a series of systems that end up giving us unequal power structures, which in turn unfairly award some people and give them more privilege than others, as well as provide a measuring stick for what is seen as the ideal in society against which all of us are measured, literally all of us. So if we're going to talk about race, it's actually been known for many decades now that race has no scientific or genetic basis. Race is actually superficial in the most literal sense, based on things such as melanin and hair texture, which differ on a geographic basis. Still, for hundreds of years, the lie of race was spread throughout the scientific community in order to justify violence against those with supposed differences, despite those differences only being very skin deep. For example, Carolus Linnaeus divided humans into 4 categories. Petrus Camper used the Greeks as the perfect idea of a human being, with all other European people being ideal and everyone else being subhuman. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach was the one who invented the term Caucasian to refer to the race he deemed to be most beautiful. And side note here, Caucasian does not actually mean white and European. It actually refers to the Caucasus region, which includes Armenia, Turkey, and so on. Lastly, Samuel Morton came up with the egregious falsehood that European or white people had the largest skulls, brains, and were of superior intelligence. The idea that people could be separated or segregated based on superior or inferior genetics, and that you could tell these things by the color of people's skin, their facial features, or their hair texture, has never been anything but ridiculous. But people bought it and still do buy it, even going so far as to say that Black people had thicker skin and could feel less pain in order to justify the horrors of chattel slavery. With racism still thriving today, it's plain to see that the lie of race is still with us to this day. But here's the catch. When race isn't real, the rules of race are constantly changing, specifically the rules of whiteness. The goalposts are ever in flux, and for this, Jewish and Arab people are perhaps 2 of the largest examples. On the US Census, there is no racial category for an Arab person to choose other than white. Yet most Arab people, even those who are very light-skinned, are not afforded the same white privilege as non-Arabs of the same complexion. In actuality, Arabs are still highly targeted and profiled people and have been excluded from whiteness, in some cases only due to a simple head covering. Indeed, even a technically white European person who, let's say, converts to Islam, can experience an exile from whiteness and an othering from their otherwise racial peers. For Jewish people, it's slightly more complicated. Even the lightest-skinned Jewish person who did not practice the religion of Judaism was persecuted in Nazi Germany, meaning simply existing as a Jewish person meant you were not white enough, you were not Aryan. Though Jewish people are not a race, they were treated as such, with things such as the Nuremberg laws, with Nazi Germany treating Jewish bloodlines as inferior to their own, and forcing several factors of identification and segregation onto them. Nowadays, Jewish people are both simultaneously viewed as white and not white, depending on who you ask. When viewed as white, it's an easy way to mask anti-Semitism by claiming that a person is punching up in terms of power rather than punching down. Yet, oppositely, many people still believe that even the lightest skinned of Jewish people are not white, will never be white, and may not even be regarded as human. Which I shouldn't even have to explain why that's anti-Semitic. While it is possible for both light-skinned Jewish and Arab individuals to benefit from white privilege, these benefits are almost always known as conditional. This means that the benefits are only there as long as people in their environment do not know they are Jewish or Arab, and their whiteness and all associated privileges can be easily revoked thereafter. Another example is Irish and Italian people, who upon initial immigration to North America were viewed as less white or not white at all, and placed lower down in the racial hierarchy. As over the years those same immigrants and their families began to participate in the discrimination of those even further below them on the hierarchy, nowadays you will find that most people view Irish and Italian individuals as fully white, proving the assimilation complete, and indeed some historians today believe that society would be much different if those initial immigrants had not partaken in such discrimination. Noel Ignatieff actually wrote an entire book on the Irish becoming white as a way to sort of expose these racial constructions and hierarchies, and in doing so was completely cast out by his racial peers, which is something that he really was proud of, but just kind of goes to show that whether you are viewed as white or not can change based on the era in which you live, the environment in which you live, the people who are around you, or how you navigate the world by choice or otherwise. The same can be said of gender. Not to be confused with sex, which is something that is assigned to us at birth and something you can typically see superficially. Gender is instead how a person feels and identifies, which is informed by any number of factors. First, consider this. In pre-colonial times, in many cultures all around the world, there were genders outside of the binary we know as male and female. This includes the two-spirit in many indigenous cultures, the Hijra of India, the Fa'afafine of Samoa, and the Lavadu of South Africa, but there's so many more. The gender binary is something that had to be created, much like race, to construct a series of societal roles, norms, and ideals, all of which work under a hierarchy. In fact, much like race was given scientific verification by a small group of men of white designation, let's call them, so was gender. They declared that only white people had a gender binary because only white people were civilized. Take that in for a minute. Anyone who didn't adhere to this binary of roles was deemed deviant, unevolved, and uncivilized, and through colonialism sought to erase all forms of gender nonconformity, which is why the concept of gender outside a binary seems like such a new concept, but it's not. It's actually the opposite. The binary is new. We can even see how these gender roles and norms have evolved from generation to generation, proving that gender is not an immutable fact, but something that society tends to dictate. For example, not that long ago, it was still normal for men to be the sole earners and breadwinners of the household, and for women to stay home, to cook, to clean, and take care of the children. Women who had jobs were expected to have very specific jobs, such as a secretary, a waitress, a nurse, a teacher, etc., while men were doctors, did repair work, or worked as a first responder. Gendered jobs may not seem as popular now as they were back then, yet men still hold the majority of positions in certain fields, up to 97% in some, such as in STEM, piloting, and firefighting. Additionally, other gender norms and ideals still exist, such as what is deemed feminine and what is deemed masculine. They all still have a strict set of rules to this day. From a young age, we are taught that things like dolls and dresses, the color pink, are for girls. and that trucks and pants and blue are for boys. Long hair is for girls and women. Short hair is for boys and men. Makeup and nail polish are for girls and women, and so on. Enforcing such a strict binary of expression means that anyone who falls outside of these norms, even those who are cisgender, meaning not transgender, are harmed in the process. It means that all men and women have a standard of beauty to meet, a standard of behavior to meet, and rigid gender guidelines to adhere to, which still overwhelmingly favor men in this patriarchal society. Which shouldn't be a surprise given everything I've told you so far regarding things having to be constructed to maintain hierarchies and structures and positions of power. Under the current social construction of gender, any and every trans person is accused of trying to defy nature, despite the fact that we already know gender is not and never has been fixed, and that trans people predate the concept of the gender binary because they have always existed. Cisgender men who wear dresses or talk about their feelings are likewise criticized for not being masculine enough, something that undoubtedly leads to the dreaded toxic masculinity, and increases rates of mental health issues in men due to societal pressures. If we want to get rid of that, which a lot of people seem to want to, we have to get rid of things like this. Women with buzz cuts who work in the auto repair industry are not seen as feminine enough, though the idea of masculinity and femininity as we know it are based on a throwaway set of ideals that certain people are honestly never going to fit into, specifically many Black women. Over the years, many Black women have been accused of being too manly simply because their features are not Eurocentric. Black women in sports in particular have frequently been policed for their bodies, such as Caster Semenya, who happens to have a genetically naturally higher amount of testosterone and was barred from running, with people fighting over whether she was even a woman. The truth is that you actually cannot tell a person's gender simply by looking at them, since assigned sex and gender can be completely different. In a society that still uses a gender binary of masculine, feminine, male, female, it's even possible for someone to have a gender identity that does not match their gender expression, such as with the example of a cisgender man wearing a dress. Just like wearing pants doesn't necessarily mean a person identifies as a man, nor does it automatically make them masculine. Wearing a dress doesn't necessarily mean a person identifies as a woman, nor does it automatically make them feminine. But honestly, if you need proof that both race and gender are constructs that are dictated by society, the easiest example for me to use is none other than myself, with a little help from some internet trolls. I know the saying goes, don't feed the trolls, but they help prove my points so often that it's actually kind of hilarious and useful. So here we go. Over a year and a half ago now, I posted a video that has come to be my most viewed, most controversial video, all about the ins and outs of racism and how white people don't really experience it under the current structures of white supremacy and racial construction. Prior to that video, I had never been perceived as anything other than A, white, and B, a woman. After that video, suddenly that changed, as I was accused of, and I use that word very specifically, as these were not polite comments or questions, of being Jewish or Arab, as well as being transgender. The reason I find this so interesting is because I managed to make it over 30 years without this happening. But suddenly I make one video that some people strongly disliked, therefore they disliked me. They decided to create this association of sorts between me they dislike and the disliked group of people. I say this with confidence, as the way that these comments were written were all done in a way as to cast aspersions onto me, as if being Jewish or Arab or transgender were all bad, evil things, that I could only ever be saying these equally bad, evil things because I was part of a bad, evil group of people.
Because I know some people won't believe me, let's have a look. Content warning for anti-Semitism, anti-Arab sentiment, racism, transphobia, and misogyny. Skip to 1628 if you don't want to see this. Jews are not white people, so please speak for yourself. Okay, Jew, your nose is showing. Of course I have a nose. Your father is definitely a rabbi. To which I said, do you mind telling me why you left me a death threat on my video, then added me to a playlist called Jewish Behavior when I'm not Jewish? And they responded with, shut up, Jew, shut up, Jew. Can we just talk about the fact that one of these people had a Rick Ross avatar, and Rick Ross is Jewish. Yeah. Let me guess, you are a J-U with barf emojis, like they're saying that Jewish people are gross. These two comments are clearly by the same person, just judging by the wording, but can we talk about how confusing the second one is especially? Some Arabs exist with blonde hair and blue eyes, and your people would still spit at them, consider themselves more white than them. But I'm not white by any means, so I'm just very confused by that. Am I white or am I not? You are not a real woman. Okay, bro, continue your hormone therapy, LMAO. You are really ugly. Like, dude, you are a grown man. Just grow your hair out or get plastic surgery. Wow, you really are not intelligent. Here's another dislike from me, and you really should get laid. It'll help that attitude. Can't tell if you're a girl or a boy. What gender are you today? And why are you bothered by that? And that's only a few.
So let's go over this one more time. In all of these other videos I did, over 100 of them up to that point, I was white and I was a woman because I was saying things that people generally agreed with. But as soon as I said something that people didn't like, my eyes were too dark and sunken to be white. My nose was too big to be white. Suddenly I needed to take more hormone therapy to appear to be feminine. Suddenly no one was sure what gender I was, but whatever I was a freak. This helps to showcase that race and gender have no real fixed meaning as social constructions, as they can easily be changed or revoked by anyone at any time under various circumstances. And this still means that race-based and gender-based discrimination are very real things. For hundreds of years now, we have lived in a society that acts as a ladder, with some people climbing up and some people climbing down. As long as there is a chance of some of us climbing even one rung upwards towards the top, there will always be people who will want to continue to maintain the lies of race and gender, to maintain the status quo of white supremacy in order to eke out just a little bit more power than the people below. That little bit of power is worth it, even knowing that the way that this society currently functions hurts quite literally all of us, though naturally some more than others. And frankly, that's just sad, because this could stop at any time. That's just something to think about for today. I'm having one of those days where it is hard to sit up and keep talking, so I'm going to leave it there. If you want to contribute to the conversation, the comments are open. They can be closed at any time for the bigots out there who just love to cause a ruckus. So keep that in mind. But until next time, I hope you're staying safe and staying well, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye, everyone.